Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning, Pete.
Hey, Pete. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Hi guys, welcome to the floor. How are you, Pete? Michael Glenn, over here. What's the mood like in Connacht Rugby this morning?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of everything, really. I think really excited that we're in season proper, week one. Obviously disappointment in terms of the Ireland result on the weekend, and you know, so thoughts with them, especially our guys, and you know, knowing the disappointment they'll be dealing with over the next few days and possibly longer. So it's a bit of everything, excitement from a personal point of view, and probably a bit of sympathy up the road as well.
What date do you have for the Ireland players to return and be available for selection?
Well, it's to be confirmed. They'll need a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks, I think, to recover properly, and that's physical as well as I suppose, the mental and emotional side of not just the campaign they've been through and how it ended, but the preparation that went into that. So, minimum of 3 to 4 weeks, but very much on an individual basis in terms of the minutes that they've played over the World Cup and how sort of bodies and minds are. So, we've been in contact with them. We'll speak again at the end of this week, and we'll work out a plan for them from there.
How have the new players settled in? What have you seen that you liked?
Yeah, look, on the whole, everyone settled in brilliantly. You know, they fitted into the group really well. I think it's that sort of group here and that sort of place, Connacht, as a club and as a community, really, in terms of how welcoming they are to everyone. But the guys have been brilliant. The two lads that came from Ireland Sevens, Andrew Smith and Liam McNamara, have been fantastic. Obviously, a lot of guys would have connection with them anyway through the Sevens or age grade stuff with Andrew. So, no, they've been brilliant. Sean Jansen is you know, not available yet for us. He's still going through some rehab, but a really good addition to the group. I think he'll add a lot once he's out in the grass. And obviously Santi Cordero had the disappointment of his knee injury, you know, going back a few weeks, but again is very much part of the group and getting a chance to contribute off the field, you know, if not on at this stage.
Do you have a timeline for Santiago?
No, look, it'll be very late in the season, and so I don't have a definite timeline. But you know, we'll cross that bridge. But it's a long-term rehab for him, and you know, he's had his surgery and he's working hard through the boxes to tick now, I suppose. So look, it'll be the end of the season, and you know, we'll review it after Christmas and just see how he's tracking.
Just the last one for me. Do you think will you lose Liam for Sevens duties? Is that part built into the contract that at some stage he may have to go off? No,
that's not part of the contract. So Liam and Andrew are with us full time. You know, obviously, if there was a situation where they weren't getting games or weren't getting opportunity, there'd be conversations we could have there. But no, they're with us and committed to us.
Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Dave?
How are you, Pete? Just on the, it's obviously still very raw, but just the kind of you talked about the emotional kind of empathetic piece with the boys coming back, and you've already spoken to them, you said, or texted them, whatever. I mean, just talk about that, because you know Ireland have been down this road many times before, and like they're coming back, they may not play with certain players ever again. They'll never have this experience again. But they have to reintegrate. So just kind of talk about that piece and how you and maybe others in the staff and even the players will kind of what kind of work you kind of need to do in that kind of area.
Yeah, it's certainly something we need to be really aware of. I mean, there's an element of it that is just the flux and the flow of high performance sport, I suppose. You get to the end of a major campaign, particularly a World Cup cycle, and there's always going to be retirements, and you know, whether you're celebrating or commiserating, there's going to be guys moving on from that group, and you know, I think that is part of the cycle, and you know, obviously adds to the disappointment if you don't quite reach those goals you're after. Look, at the same time, it's the whole package, really. You know, the outcome obviously has a huge sway on how people are feeling from an emotional, you know, sort of psychological point of view. The efforts that go into that, you know, obviously to lose a game that was as close and as highly fought as it was on the weekend, and then the weeks that go before that as well, in terms of the, you know, the contest against South Africa and Scotland, and then the whole preparation period. You know, you're not just dealing with one result, you're dealing with a period of several months. And I suppose in terms of the journey that Ireland have been on, you know, going back to that tour to New Zealand last summer, and even before that, you know, they've had goals that were set a long way out. So you know, they will have fallen short in their own eyes, but you know, obviously everyone's immensely proud of what they have achieved and the way they went about it. So it's not as simple as just trying to get over one disappointing result. You know, we lost a semi-final last season, and that's one thing, but you know, you're talking about a whole journey they've been on, I suppose. So you've got to be aware of that, but also understand the individuals. You know, with Mac, Bundy and Finlay, for us, they're three very different human beings, and how they react to that will be different as well. So we'll manage them through that. It starts with conversations, you know, before they get back, and that continues with once they are back in the room, and you know, we'll cross that bridge as they arrive.
there was a slow start last season. I know it ameliorated later on, but just again, obviously you don't want a slow start, but how are you kind of looking at that and assessing that in terms of what needs to be kind of amended or changed compared to last season at the start?
Yeah, I think there's lessons to be learned from it in terms of how we went about our pre-season, but also the mindsets going into those early weeks. It's a different type of fixture list. I actually don't think it gets any easier. I don't think there's an easy game in the URC. I know it's a massive cliche, but we do have to recognise 3 home games is a massive opportunity, and we need to make the most of that. That said, no one's going to give you points just because you're at home, and we've got 3 very challenging games against Ospreys, Glasgow, and Ulster. Very challenging in different ways. They'll offer real sort of unique weeks, I suppose, in terms of the type of game plans we need, but also the type of threats coming from them. So it's a great opportunity, but one will have to be really good to make the most of. And it's all very well saying, great, you've got 3 games at home compared to the run of fixtures we had this time last year. But it's only great if you win them. So again, another cliche, but we'll take it a week at a time, try and do the job against Ospreys, and then we'll reassess from there.
Simon?
Hi, Pete.
Hi, Simon. Morning.
Cardiff here in Wales, where we're also dealing with a World Cup quarter-final exit. I was just thinking, you're talking about your first game against the Ospreys there, coached by a countryman of yours, Toby Booth. What kind of do you expect from a team coached by him? And generally, having seen the Ospreys over the years, what kind of challenge and style do you expect to see on the weekend?
Yeah, it's a great question, Simon. I think first and foremost, we've never come up against an Ospreys team that isn't unbelievably physical and unbelievably well organised, and I think that's part of the DNA in terms of the success that the club has had over the period of regional rugby, but also what Toby brings to the table there. So we know it'll be a very physical game. For all ambition of what we want to do with the ball and the way we might want to play the game, the first and foremost you've got to front up physically, and that's for us in defence in terms of stopping their momentum of some pretty big ball carriers coming at us, but also in attack in terms of us earning the right to play around the carry and around the breakdown area. So I think that front end of the physical contest will be incredibly important. And I think Toby will have a team that's really well organised in terms of their first phase plays and their kick chase and all those fundamentals of the game that give them the structure to then play off. So we'll have to play really well, and particularly being at home, we will want to assert our own style of play and I suppose make a statement about what we want to do this season. But we've definitely got to earn the right to do that, and we know it'll be a big challenge.
You reached the semi-finals last year, which I think surprised a lot of people, surpassed perhaps expectations. If memory serves me right, Connacht won the league during a World Cup year, 2015-2016. So how do you rate your chances this year of even potentially going better? And what are your realistic targets for the league as a whole?
Yeah, look, I think making that semi-final certainly, raised expectations, and certainly it's generated a hunger within the group, within the squad, in terms of feeling, as proud as they were to get to a semi-final last year. They realised that we had to give ourselves a bit of catching up to do across the season after a slow start. And also we probably didn't give the best version of ourselves in that game over in Cape Town, as good as the Stormers were. We felt we had a bit more in us and probably didn't fire as many shots as we wanted to. So I wouldn't describe it as unfinished business, but I think it certainly whet the appetite for being involved at the sharp end of the competition. But the other big lesson from last year is that it's a body of work accumulated across the season, and a good first game or a good first half of season, or conversely if it goes the other way for you, it doesn't determine your fate. It's building week after week and picking up bonus points even when you're not playing well. It's about using the full squad. It's a fairly long campaign. I know we're a little more condensed with the World Cup this season, but 11 games back to back will take us through to the 1st of January for us. And even then, we'll get a good gauge of how we're tracking, but there'll still be an enormous amount of work to do. So it is a long campaign, and we've got to approach it in that way as well, and bite off the chunks as we go.
Lastly, from as you indicated, it's a different kind of season, all truncated. Some teams affected more than others by players not coming back maybe till November time. So as you look at the URC as a whole, who do you see as, if not yourself, the top contenders for the title this season?
Look, it's a really interesting one because, as you said, it can be a bit up in the air after a World Cup campaign, and there's always that variation of guys coming back in. Look, I think Glasgow did really well last season, and we've got them in round 2. So, we're certainly fully focused on Ospreys, but they're a team that have caused us problems in the past, and I think they have a very solid attack and defence. Ulster will have a point to prove, being up near the top of the log for the last few seasons, but without getting the silverware that they're so hungry for. Leinster, certainly won't go anywhere, and Munster obviously will have enormous confidence from their success last season. So just in terms of those guys that we've got sort of in that first half of the season, there'll be massive contenders there, I think. South African teams obviously very strong. We'll see how they go in the World Cup and when players return to them. But there's not many easy games, and obviously Welsh rugby's been through a period of transition in terms of what's happened over the last few months. But at the same time, if you have to go away and play games in Wales, they're tough games to get points from as well. So, I see a lot of teams that'll be there or thereabouts. I think it'll be one of the most exciting URC campaigns we've had so far.
William?
Hi Pete, how are you?
Good, thank you, William.
I'm just wondering, 3 home games to start with. You probably need to win all of those games. So how difficult will it be to bring players in and out? Because you want to get players on the field as well. So it's going to be competitive selection.
It will be, and I think that start of the season for us, the first sort of 6-7 games, is a really interesting rhythm to it. We've got the 3 home games, as you mentioned, and away to Edinburgh, where we've had that trip in pre-season, which served us really well to get that experience of the game over there and the opposition, albeit they'll have a few players back by then. And then we're off to South Africa 2 weeks, and we come back then for a short turnaround against Leinster. So the flow of that first block, there's a lot to kind of get your head around, and how we use the squad will be really important. I think right now we're saying who's our best team for round 1, and probably not planning too much further ahead than that once we, until we know when those international guys are returning to the fold. Obviously that will come to the equation, but it's very much about saying what's the best 23 for round 1, and we'll look at performance and judge accordingly from there.
Any word on how Mac Hansen's injury is? He limped off there on Saturday night, having played 60 minutes.
Yeah, he did. Look, no specifics from me at this stage. I think they travel back over the next 24 hours today, I think, and then we'll touch base with them and get all the medical updates. So no, I don't have any details at this point.
Okay, that's me. Thank you.
Okay, guys, we will leave it there unless anyone wants to come in.
Just have a small one, Stephen.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, dude.
Just a small one, Stephen. Sorry, Peter, to again mention somebody's not here, but just Andy Friend has been doing his world tour over the last few weeks. He's not around this season. I mean, how big a loss obviously is he, but also how does that give you guys an opportunity? Obviously, you've got Scott in, and there's kind of a new staff. Everything kind of evolves in rugby. So just speak about that for a moment. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a fresh chapter for the club. I think for me it's my 7th year here, and I'm really aware of that in terms of it's a familiar voice for the players from my end. Cully Tucker going around in that scrum and breakdown role, which was a really important part of putting together that coaching room when I had license to do that. So there is a bit of familiarity there, but I think the opportunity to bring in the new guys with Scott Fardy that you mentioned, John Muldoon and Mark Sexton, I think that freshening up of the coaches' room is really important, not just in the different voices for the group, but also some different ideas and different rugby perspectives. It's different for me to be the man in charge, as much as I had a large input into how we trained and our game planning and other aspects of the rugby or the programme on the field over the last season or two. To be the head man and I suppose not be going down the corridor to have to run things by other people or get their permission. It is different. It is different, and with that comes, it's great accountability, but massive responsibility as well. So, the great thing is we've had a really long pre-season for those guys to bed in, the new coaches, but for me also to find my rhythm as a head coach. And there'll be plenty of challenges as we go, but the energy around the place is brilliant, and we're just looking forward to getting started.
Okay, thanks, Stephen, Peter. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, we'll leave it there, guys. That's all on the